Welcome to Module 5. Congratulations on making it this far in the course. In this module, we're going to discuss barriers to access to technology and innovation for African MSMEs and policy recommendations for improving their access to technology and innovation, and the contribution of MSMEs to the achievement of the SDGs in Africa. So before we delve deep into this module, let's discuss the overview of global barriers to innovation. Some African MSMEs cannot reach maximum potential use of technology and innovations due to existing barriers to success. Technology and innovation is very vital to survival and competitiveness of these enterprises, but we must understand that everyone has a different starting point. There are a plethora of barriers, but let's discuss some of the barriers to access for MSMEs. First is incompetence. This concerns employees who will manage the technology and innovations and who will conduct the research and development. Then there's lack of finance. Unlike large firms, MSMEs experience relatively low turnover, which makes it impossible for MSMEs to consider innovation due to costs. Then there's underdeveloped financial systems. This is attributed by incompetence and lack of finance, but this deals specifically with the barriers banks and financial institutions have in the failure to play a role in fostering technological innovations. And an additional barrier is less expenditure on research and development. In most African economies, they spend less than an agreed 1% of their GDP on research and development. For example, Botswana is 0.4%, DRC is 0.5%, Ghana is 0.3%, Lesotho is 0.1%, Madagascar at 0.2%, and South Africa at 0.9%. Now, when we look at the barriers of access to technology and innovation for African SMEs, we can look at a few different case studies. In this particular case, let's take a look at Ghana. Studies revealed the barriers for Ghanaian MSMEs face as it pertains to innovation and technology is categorized in two particular groups: ICT capability and deficient physical policy. When we look at skills and ICT capability, we look at the quality of technically trained manpower, we look at the rate of access to ICT, we look at ICT capacity, lack of technically trained manpower, unsophisticated market, lack of demanding customers, lack of innovative customers, and lack of competition. Now, deficient physical policy deals with the lack of finance, lack of explicit policy support, excessive perceived economic risk, and low concentration of organization capital. Now, in the past few years, African women have made a significant political strides to advance their rights. But we must also look at the overview of women in Africa and the challenges that they face, obstacles they face that fall under the categories of gender-based income disparities, denied education and employment, limited opportunities in trade, industry, healthcare, and other sectors. And although women make up a significant proportion of the economically active population, their contributions are not fully considered because they are more engaged in the informal sector. For example, women have been found to have poor access to credit and land ownership. Similar barriers are also identified in women-owned, women-led MSMEs in an attempt to access technology and innovation. So let's break down these categories again. When we look at the overview of women and as well as youth in Africa, we understand that their barriers include gender perception, sexism, lack of flexible work policies, education inequalities, lack of mentors and role models. For youth-led MSMEs, their barriers to access to technology and innovation include lack of diversification, lack of social networks, lack of experience, and lack of access to resources. So in this particular figure, we can see that COVID-19 strongly affected women-led firms than men-led firms. If we look at the darker blue aspect of the bar chart, we can see that that signifies strongly affected. And we compare women to men, women are almost 10% more strongly affected than men-led firms. We can also see the disadvantages when it comes to barriers of SMEs and youth-led firms. They are at higher risk of permanently shutting down in upcoming months. So when we look at closure in 3 months or less, we can see that youth-led firms are at 26% and large firms at 10%. So you can see the gap in the barriers within these categorized firms. And so, what is the way forward when we look at post-COVID for technology and innovation for African enterprises? Well, the way forward for African enterprises is to implement the development strategy guidelines as stipulated in the 2063 agenda. The African Union Agenda 2063 regards science, technology, and innovation as the tools and enablers for achieving their continental development. The mission can be achieved by one, improving Africa's STI readiness in Africa in terms of its infrastructure, professional technical competence, and entrepreneurial capacity. And two, implementing policies and programs in science, technology, and innovation that holistically and sustainably address Africa's societal needs as well. So we can break this up into a few different categories. Let's first look at the infrastructure development. This deals with upgrading existing science laboratories and establishing world-class STI infrastructures and facilities for research and innovation. We can also look at how to build technical competencies. This deals with ensuring that there is capacity building and competency development for its employees and its owners. And innovation and entrepreneurship, it's also very important if we want to move forward. This is the need for networking and collaboration between education and research among private and public sectors and commercialization of research and innovation outputs. And of course, an enabling environment. When we look at an enabling environment, this entails evidence-based policies and programs that encourage development and adoption of technological innovation. An enabling environment also provides equal opportunity for careers in STI research and innovation. So though there is a role that governments and private partners towards MSMEs have to also play. The factors that affect businesses and are categorized into those that can be controlled by business owners, internal, and those factors that are not controlled by the business owners, external. Internal factors include structure. This deals with setting clear direction and values for the company, as well as people. When we deal with people, we must look at the knowledge, skills, creativity, and motivation of employees. Then there's technology. This deals with knowledge sharing of innovations and improvements. And then there's systems, the design of processes to meet customer needs. There's also external factors. This is the social forces. It includes demographics, lifestyles, taste, and so forth. Then we must look at economic factors, which deals with exchange rates, recession, demand, and supply. Then there's cultural factors. This deals with language, religion beliefs, and celebrations. Now, while internal factors affect business alone, external factors affect both the business and other external factors. Since external factors entail forces that are outside the control of business owners, it is left to government and private partners to create an enabling environment. This is very important because before the interventions, governments and partners need to be aware of the most vulnerable MSMEs and to what extent smaller firms, women-led firms, youth-led firms are greatly affected by COVID-19 more than their counterparts, but everyone is affected in different ways because everyone has a different starting point from which they're looking to engage in technology and innovation. So when we look at COVID and the impacts of firms depending on their size, we can tell that some are strongly affected depending on their size, others are moderately affected, others are slightly, and others not at all. We see here that micro are most strongly affected, which makes sense at 60%. Now, smaller firms are at risk of closure due to COVID-19 because we understand that their resources are limited. They're unable to pivot as much. We've discussed some of the barriers and challenges, and this chart illustrates that closure in 3 months is much higher for micro than it is for large firms. So what does competitiveness and resilience have to do with MSMEs and the barriers that they face? Well, resilience is simply understood as the capacity to withstand disruption. It is the firm's ability to absorb shocks with situation specific responses. To be resilient, a firm must be robust, related, and responsive. A firm, to be competitive, it has to be able to compete, it has to connect, and it has to change. There is a coexistence of competitiveness and resilience in as far success for MSMEs is concerned. And a firm needs one to achieve the other. You see, a firm needs to compete to stay robust. It needs to connect to become related, and it needs to change to emerge responsive. Let's take a look at this chart that helps us break it down. When we look at the competitiveness pillar, compete, we're looking at common attributes that include efficient inventory management, complete financial record keeping, ownership of bank, and that's what creates the resilient pillar of robustness in your business. When we're looking to connect, common attributes include engagement with business, support organizations and peers, buyers and suppliers, diversified supplier base. And that's what creates and allows them to be related. Being related allows you to be more resilient in your business. And then there's change. When we look at change, common attributes include commitment to research and development, high skills matching, and access to finance. This allows us to be responsive. And so when we look at this chart, we see that competitiveness is an attribute that makes firms more robust in crisis. Here we have efficient inventory management, yes, rated very highly. Complete financial recording, yes, is rated highly. And ownership of bank account, rated very highly. When we look at the connection, this allows firms to be related. We also can see that there was difficulty in accessing information. Was there difficulty in accessing information? 42% said no, 28% said yes. And I'm sure this is very dependent upon the size of the enterprise. And then, of course, change factors make firms more responsive. So we got to look at research and development. You must look at skill match, and you must also look at the ability to manage cash flow. And so a government's roles can be explained in many different ways. Governments can help promote small businesses in various different ways, one of which is the implementation of economic development programs. These programs help create enabling environments for MSMEs to start, grow, relocate, and to be resilient and competitive. What does this look like? Well, it includes low interest loans, infrastructure improvements, and those alike. Then when we look at loan guarantee programs, we must look at the provision of loans that help solve one of the most uh, 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 one of the biggest barriers for MSMEs, which deals with finance. And of course, research and development. We saw in previous slides that research and development is extremely low, yet research and development is very important when we look at world technology champions. And so government can support MSMEs by providing the resources that create enabling environments that allow for research, development, discovery of new ideas, technologies, new product strategies to improve efficiency. And so first improvement efficiency, we must also look at infrastructure improvement funding. Governments need to help improve the infrastructure needed for businesses to succeed. That includes building and maintaining roads for logistics and transportation of products and services, bridges, rail lines, airports, seaports, energy transmission lines, telecommunications, and more. We also must look at education and training programs. In previous module and slides, we discussed that that there is a low rate of graduate level school education as it pertains to MSMEs. In fact, many people only go through primary education. And so we must look at education and training. This will ensure that our workers are trained and are ready and prepared for the roles ahead. Government is obliged to provide primary, secondary, higher education, and technical colleges to its citizens, making it easier for those who want to learn. And then we must look at the SDGs. Irrespective of the challenges, MSMEs make a contribution towards SDGs. There is a demonstrated and proven relevance, roles, and contributions of micro, small, and medium enterprises towards the Sustainable Development Goals. In fact, a recent report by UNDSA on the role of MSMEs is explained that MSMEs cover three main aspects of the SDGs. First, MSMEs directly contribute to the goal. Secondly, MSMEs have a potential or possibility or the occurrence of adopting practices within their businesses that then contribute to the goals, as well as third, new business models, solutions, or innovations of MSMEs also help in achieve SDGs. And so, what is the role of the African Continental Free Trade Area? Well, it was established in 2018, and it's a unique opportunity to create a single market for goods and services, facilitated by the movement of persons to promote industrial development and sustainable and inclusive socioeconomic growth to deepen the economic integration of Africa. The start of trading under the free trade era began on the 1st of January 2021. And as of the 5th of February 2021, 54 member states of the AU have signed the agreement, and 36 countries have deposited their instruments of ratification. Now, these benefits are depicted from the goals of free trade area, which will address several issues affecting MSMEs, not limited to, but include the liberalization of markets for goods and services to contribute to the movement of capital, as well as facilitate investments through certain large markets. Now, the free trade agreement really is a catalyst and introduction to new technology, and it will boost productivity. It also enhances competitiveness of member economies. It allows for diversification and the promotion of industrial development, helping to develop value addition systems for products. Eliminating tariffs on intra-Africa trade is making it easier for businesses to trade within Africa and benefit from their own growing market. It also introduces regulatory measures such as sanitary standards and limiting non-tariff barriers to trade and establishing in the future a common continental market. And here is a map of all the member countries by status of ratification. Additional benefits of the free trade era include fostering specialization and boosting industrialization, increasing employment, and investment opportunities, as well as technical logical advancement, reducing the manufacturing gap, creating more avenues for SMEs to create more well-paying jobs, as well as increasing investments and driving capital to domestic businesses. See, it eases the process of importing raw materials from other African countries and enables MSMEs to set up assembly firms in other African countries, creating cheaper means of production. And without further ado, we want to congratulate you for making it through module 5, reviewing the barriers of technology and innovation for MSMEs and their contribution to SDGs, and what policy recommendations we can offer to government and private sector partners so that MSMEs can truly engage in their role with technology and innovation. Congratulations on completing this module and completing the course. We encourage you to participate in all the case studies, participate in the discussion questions with the forums, and reading the materials.